last year, but this year it's my intention to just start from the beginning and get an overall view of what's going on here. We went through six drushes. Here's the seventh drush again. Is this the same drush as drush 7, or we only did 6 over in Pesach? I don't remember. So that's in the past. So let's see what we got here on page Kaf Zayin is where this starts. So we're going to look through it, and we're going to see all the different goes through the 12th drush. So I think I'm going to skip the intros that he has at the beginning in brackets and just start reading. So it says like this: V'hu drush rishon le'inyan SEFIROT HAOMER Gevurot nisbar ki b'Pesach hu zaman hayanika shazer anpet. That's Pesach. Exactly what he meant by Pesach. He says it's on Yanika. Ve'invo ela mochid hakadosh, and at that point, only mochid hakadosh shehem arba elokim, which are 4 different kinds of elokims that he's reviewing now. Echad yude b'chochma, ve'echad heyen b'bina, ve'echad halafa b'tzir yud vav yud, ve'chasadim b'shabadas, ve'echad halazin b'gevura shabadas b'tzir yud vav yud. Now it's really hard to picture exactly at this at the beginning of creation here, so to speak. This is how it's formed out of these letters. So that's a projection in the mind. Then it says V'daki b'mochen the godless. When mochen the godless come in, makdima machasanu the seis min the das for the his pasha beguf the zaz. So the first thing happens is that the chasadim in godless come out first. V'achakach yotzes the gevuros, and the gevuros come out to meet the chasadim. Avach b'mochen the katnus, but when you go to mochen the katnus, which is the state as their anpin at the time of, I guess, of he just said of Pesach, b'mochen the katnus, az gevuros maschil the his pasha bedufa the zer anpin. That's when it starts to spread into the body of zer anpin. That's the mochen the katnus first. V'achakach yotzes the chasadim. The chasadim come out to meet the gevuros. V'chatam hu lefi shal mochen the katnus heim dinim kashem. So he's saying that, what does that mean? He says that the dinim kashem, in the case of katnus, are there first. That's the foundation. And the godless is the other way around. So he says, V'zehu gam keim chayetzer tov v'chayetzer hara. So that's a strong statement. It's also the yetzer tov, yetzer hara, the difference between gevuros and chasadim. Ki ha-chasadim, because he explains, chasadim heim yetzer tov sheba'adam, that is the good aspect of the man. V'ha-gevuros heim yetzer hara, the gevuros are the yetzer hara. I'm sure there's a lot more to be said about that. And so in the period of the person has a restricted consciousness, that's why thinking is katnus. So the sickness comes before the remedy. Let me just let me read it one time. One more, it says Ubimei HaKatnus shall the Adam. Maskil HaYetzahara, so this is like Rabbi Nachman talks about Mar Shchara, or the person becomes depressed or angry. Maskil HaYetzahara lehis pashet ba'adam kodesh shivach HaYetzatov v'zochach damazos. That's just the way it is, that I guess these bad traits or these bad emotion or these emotions which cause a lot of trouble. All right, he's going to say they come first. So we know this is the time of din. So therefore the gevuros, the dinim of katnus, they spread into the body of zer anpin b'sheva shavuos over the course of 7 weeks. So let me just make this. The dinim are spreading throughout the week. I have to kind of digest this. V'hine mei HAOMER heim zeman dinim kanoda, v'lechen hagevuros v'chadinim shel hakatnus mispashtim begufa dezer. So that's the time of restricted consciousness, b'sheva shavuos, of the course of the 7 weeks. V'achakach b'yom chag haShavuos, shehu yom matan Torah, yotzim gam hachasadim shel hakatnus. So all the chasadim that refer to katnus also come out. Shehoy yodayim b'dash zer anpin, which still remained in the das of zer anpin. Mispashtim begufa, and they spread now into the gufa. This is like bringing the medicine to the disease. Vaz gam came niknasim bezer anpin, and so now they're also going into zer anpin. And he says also, wait a minute, Vaz gam came niknasim bezer anpin ha'arba mochen kulan the godless kanoida, and then they first comes. So the order that he's saying is that first comes the gevuros, and they're spreading throughout your body in the 7th weeks. But then comes Shavuos, and I think that's what he's saying, is that all the Chasadim come out, and then the Chasadim of Katnus come out, and then the godless comes in. His boyers say that his pashas hakavuros b'sheva Shavuos. Okay, sorry. Let me just read the light print, or the print rather. V'hinecha b'shvua rishon, on the first week. Mispashetis v'yaretis min das gevura achas. So the first week has 1 gevura that comes out. The nekneses b'chesed zer anpin, and that gevura starts at the chesed of zer anpin. V'shvura sheni yaretis gevura achas, and another comes out from a das. The nekneses b'gevura the zer anpin, and enters into the gevura zer anpin. V'chein al derek zeh. So this is how it goes every week. Until you reach that point, where you have Hod has come in and brought in, that's the final Gevurah. So this is the way it normally is stated. This is that all of them join together, these Chamesha Gevurah, so they go into Yesod. So the same thing is true in the 7th week. It's the klalos of the chamisha, it's the klalos of the klal, really, the gevuras, neknasim, b'malchus tezah, so that kolel goes into the malchus tezah, al derek hanisker be'inyan his pashas ha'chamisha chasadim, in the same way that the 5 spread into the 5 spheros, from chesed to hod, so also the kolel goes into yesod, and then the yesod goes into malchus. So it's va'amnam hiyos kol shavua kolula b'sheva yomim. So now you look at the week itself. So each week gets something slightly different. It's a different gevura, I guess is what he's saying. So I was really confused about that. It's a simple idea, really. Va'amnam hiyos kol shavua kolula b'sheva yomim. So every week has 7 days. Hatam hu lefisha b'kol b'china mehem. Yesh sheva bechinos, because in every single bechin of them, there are 7 bechinos. Okay, so the 7 sevens. Okay, so how to explain to me, how did this work? Okay, so Shavua Rishon Neknesecha Gevurah Rishon Bechesed Zer Anpin. So the first Gevurah comes in on the first week. U'b'Sefiros Chesed Atzma Yesh Sheva Bechinos Atzma. So the first thing on the first week is going to be Chesed. And in that chesed, there are 7 different aspects over there. Shehim chesed shebechesed, gevur shebechesed, and he goes on and finally finishes up, and he says, umalchus shebechesed. So you get all of those from chesed down through malchus. V'chein al derek zecha b'shar sheva. So it goes the same way in every one of the other 7 weeks. Now he says, "Va'amdam he yos tzarach ha'adam l'sfor sfiras ha'omer b'piv." So now he says this idea, that since a person has to express this with his mouth, he said, the Rav says what? He says, well, I guess I just said it slightly, whether the person has to say it out loud. Hatam hu ki al yedehi yos ha'adam sofer b'piv u'motze hevel metoch piv l'chutz. And he brings out the vape, so he breathes, his breath comes out. Gorm sheyotze hevel or hamakif mipi ha'adam elyon shehu zer anpin. It causes a reaction deep within reality into the place of Zer Anpin. And Zer Anpin, it comes out from Zafin, a Makif, an ore of Makif. The Makif, the call Sheva Tachtonos Shabo, and it surrounds all the 7 Tachtonos in it. I just need to read because I have to see which, a little confused about the Sheva Tachtonos. He says, Ki al yedei hiyosa adam sofer bepiv motze hevel matoch piv luchutz. Gorm sheyotze hevel or hamakif mipi ha'adam. So it's a hevel of a makif comes out, which is of the Adam Elyon, which is there. And it's makif. It winds up coming out of the mouth, so to speak, as it's like imagine that what you're doing is actually affecting Zer Anpin. And out of Zer Anpin, your hevel is analogous to the ore of the Ein Sof in a certain way that is able to shine from the outside onto the zat of Zer Anpin, which is what we're talking about, is the Chesed to Malchus. So so this goes on. The Makif and B'Sheva Shavuos through the 7 weeks shall Sfiras HaOmer. Vayedei Kach. So this way, this light that's coming out of the mouth of Zer Anpin, so to speak, Mismatkos Gevurot the Katnus and Mispashtim Toch Zer Anpin, they have the power to be able to sweeten. Now he's saying, I think this is the idea. This is going on at the same time that you're counting the spheros, and the spheros are really evidence of Gevuros that are spreading throughout your body. But this hevel that's coming out through them, that's what I'm thinking he's saying. So the hevel that's coming out for them shines on them anyway. It's a certain sweetening process. So he said the Katnus. So he says, let me go back a little bit. Al Yedei Kach Mismatkos Gevuros the Katnus. So this sweetens the Gevuros of Katnus. Hamispashtos Toch Zer Anpin, which are spread into Zer Anpin. Or panimi kanisker, which is an or panimi, ki heim dinim kashim gemurim, because what you have there is real serious dinim during this period of time. So, but he's saying there by saying this out loud and by saying the whole thing out loud, what you're doing is you're bringing a certain amount of hevel from the mouth of Zer Anpin, that's a Hakodesh here, and you're able to sweeten those dinim, at least some. So then he says, Od bekuntras, and I guess Adam Acher. So he says somebody else's notes. I saw a story about, or some ideas about Sfiras HaOmer in a different way. So it's like this. They came out of Das. Now, this is a different narrative. And they spread downwards into the air. So he putting them both together. He says they spread down into the body of Zer Anpin, and he says be eating the Pesach, which is about Pesach. He says, and so Pesach didn't really talk about that much about Yetzias Mitzrayim, as far as I remember. So now with the fact that there are 2, now he's differentiated. It's just not a makif. It's both makif, the higher makif and the lower makif. So he said, "Be'ezer siyum shnei oros makifim, hey moridim achamisha chasadim." They the amnam again. Be'ezer v'siyur shnei oros makifim. With that help, hey moridim chamisha. That has the power to be able to cause the 5 chasadim to come down. Meaning yisod the abach hameluvish toch shlish elyon, which is in the shlish elyon of the yisod of Ima, which is inside of the Das is Zer Anpin. Elyon himbechusa shel the Das is Zer Anpin, which is covered over by the Das is Zer Anpin. It's inside of there. Ve'hin mispashed in the mata b'shara guf, and they now, as a result of this makif, are able to spread into the rest of the body. Now they're going here. We're talking about where they're going at the same time. That is the Chasadim and the Gevurot. V'hinei heim shnei mekifim v'chamish chasadim. So now you have 7 here. You have the Panimim, which are inside, which he said are dinim gemurim. I thought that's what the idea was. So they have 7 over here. So now you have 7. 2 Mekifin and 5 Penimin. So, excuse me. Ugeneged zed sarach she is pashtu gam came achamisha gevuros, so corresponding to those, he has to have also the same time the 5 gevuros. Now, I think that I made a mistake in the translation. I says v'hine heim shnei mekifim v'chamisha chasadim. So my first question was, how did he put them all together? So he must mean, yeah, he said chasadim. So you have 7 chasadim is what he's saying. So then put on the other side that there's the hispashtas of the 5 gevuros, im shnei oros mekifim, also they have mekifim too, kadesh yukla hispashat kenizker. According to that, then, it would mean that this hevel that came out of the piv of Zeranpin, that comes out of the piv of Zeranpin as a result of saying or counting Sefirot Zvonim, is coming out with both things, not just chasadim, but it's coming out with chasadim and gevuros. It's like a dueling pairs. Heim sheva acherim. There's another 7 there. Hare heim arba aser b'chinda b'zer anpin and nikri Yisrael. So you want to count like that. He says that makes 14. Now let's see if I don't get too lost in this. But if you look at this, you'll see that there's another 14 that are completely different, but parts of a Nikra Yaakov and the parts of that's called Yaakov. So here we're talking about Zer Anpin, and then further out from Zer Anpin, more Chitzoni to Zer Anpin is the parts of called Yaakov. So what about Yaakov? Higambo yesh chamish chasadim v'chamish gevuros, because this is a duplicate parts of built on a more Chitzoni to Zer Anpin. It also has 5 chasadim and 5 gevuros. Harechem esrim b'shmona. So you can darshan the same way, and you could say, so therefore we had 28. So 14 for Zer Anpin and 14 for Yaakov. That makes 28. Then he said, V'sheva b'chinas acheres b'rochel. Wait a minute, but what about Rochel? There's 7 over there. V'sheva b'chinas b'leah. There's another 14. The Nukva is only on Gevuros, so she will be, what? Just another, let me read again. Sheva Bechina Beleah. Okay, now I count to 14, that's fine. The she only gets Gevuros, no sweetening. That makes 42. Now we know that, so what's pshat in 42? So 42 is the elevator, the energy of the elevator that is able to make everything go up. Now what we're saying right here is that by saying this, it's allowing everything to, it's all of this process that we're talking about. Now he's got the Sheva Gevuros Acheres Shekmakabelas Rachel Lomata, so down below he says that she picks up another 7 Gevuros. So we count there's going to be 42 different aspects there. Connected arba v'teisha yemei HAOMER shehem, which goes into that. Another 7. I don't know where the 7 came from Rachel. The extra 7, I was able to buy into a certain amount of what he said, but it's a little bit vague to me still. This one statement, if you don't mind, I could just going back to the previous one, number Lama Gimel. He says, V'sheva b'chinas acheres b'rachel, v'sheva b'chinas acheres for Leah. So what's the problem with the 7? So in other words, why isn't it 7 Gevuros and 7? Wouldn't we automatically know that it would be Gevuros or Chasadim too? He says, L'fi shachan nekeva eina lokechas rak Gevuros bilvad. So it doesn't multiply itself. It just remains as 7s. It doesn't become a 14. Hare heim arbaim v'shnayim. Now you have 42. Okay, so you have 42 because there are only 2 7s. They could only make 14. Now over here, with the Sheva Gevuros Acheros shemakabelas Rachel Amata, she gets 7 more Gevuros. I'm not sure what it means that they flow down into her at the bottom. I'm not sure. We have to really get into that more. But right now we're reading across the top. So put them all together. What do you have? You have 49 different parts. כנגד 49 ימי העומר, שהן 7 שבועות. Okay, so that's a whole area that really could be looked at a later date to try to figure out that last little bit. Maybe we'll start looking into it. I don't know how this is going to go, so just trying this for the first time. So he said, "V'hu Drush sheni be'inyan sfiras HAOMER." Here we go. Hinei mizbar la'el is explained above. Godless hazer dezer anpen hoyed Shaar. It was momentary. B'leil Rishon shal Pesach. Nami didn't say that the biyom Rishon. He said B'leil Rishon shal Pesach. K'dei sheyuchul yisocher legoyel. But at any rate, I think it has to do with the day too. V'achar yom Rishon. So now he says yom Rishon shal Pesach. Mistalkim kol hamochim. So they stay there. I guess the idea was they enter at night, the mochen the godless, and then they leave kol hamochim haniskarim. When it goes back to its original condition. What was the original condition? The bechinas tlas klil and betlas. Now apparently he's saying that that's our position. Our position is that we're heading back into tlas klil and betlas. This is the reason why we don't say the complete hollow. Ella biyom rishon, that except, Ella rom shibrishon shel Pesach bilvad. V'achar kach melel sheni ve'elach. But now we're in the third day of the count. V'achar kach melel sheni ve'elach anu chosim lahamshech hamochem in iskarim. We go back, and we're going to keep streaming these mochem that we're talking about. Shenik nesuch belel Pesach. That is the mochem, the godless. He says, "Sheniknas of the Pesach and Nistalko that went and are gone, came and gone." V'ata chayzach and the kones kafi seidach and madregos. Now it comes back. It's going to enter in according to the order of the madregos. Kol madrega b'yom shalah. Each madrega has its own day. Now I just have to read some of this again just to plant it in my mind because it gets away from me. So I'll finish it out. That's the right saying the Omer. We got some ideas about that, and now we'll see this. Let me go back to the beginning by number Hey on the previous page. So v'achakach melel sheni ve'eloch anu chosi lachamshech hamochim haniskarim. He's just we're bringing the mochem that we mentioned. We're bringing them back. So now he's, before, in the previous Drush, he was talking about the Gevurot of Katnus. Here, he's talking about that we lost the Chasadim, I guess he uses all the mochem, that came in of godless that came in at Pesach. So Shenichnas Pesach and Nistalko, and they less. So this is the part. So now it goes according to the order of the madregos. Kol madrega b'yom shalah. Every madrega is a different day. So now when we're counting out and we're saying out the words, we heard a drush on that, on Sfiras HAOMER, but Chimishim Yom was the 50 days Shebein Pesach Latzeres, and that's every single one of those days is going to be a madrega of bringing back Mochin the godless. Okay, but we are in Mochin the Katnus, which we know that Mochin the Katnus is our Dinim Gemurim. So let's see how the perspective continues. So it's V'noida, Ki Eina Keser Nimna La'olam. We never count Keser. Maybe because it's really from a remnant of a different parts of, or refers to a different parts of. So when we start counting, we really only start with Reishis Chochma. Chochma was the beginning of the count. Maybe because, I think another thought that maybe because Keser is just too ethereal to be able to be, it's not tangible enough to count. So it's beyond tangibility. Maybe that's an idea. So now So you're going to start counting now. Chochma bin das Chesed Gevurot Tiferes. V'sham ku makom haschalas binyan hanekeva, because when you count those particular spheres, which are the spheres, well, let's see, he says this is where you see the beginning. I guess he means at Tiferes, and we stop talking there. The place where the beginning of the Nukva is going to appear, which is Malchus Ma'ach Recha Tiferes the Zer Anpin. So those 7 places which are going to be on Zer Anpin is where the Nukva is going to develop. B'imolhem Sheva Sephiros. Now with her are going to be 7 Sephiros. Genegdam, and corresponding to those 7 Sephiros, Anas Sofrim Sheva Shavuos Elu. So for these 7 Sephiros of building up the Nukva, I think what he's saying, he said the Nukva is built in 7 weeks. So each one of them, as we're doing this Sephiros HAOMER, it's not the same thing exactly. We're bringing in, he says, the order is we're bringing in godless, or little bit of godless every day according to the count. He gave some details about what happens when you're saying in Sefira. And now he says that we only count from Chochel Lamata as the things are coming in. Let's just read it. I want to read it one more time. It's getting a little bit mixed, blurry. Benoda ki eina keser nimna la'olam. So I just had to talk about that. Ve'enu nikdas b'mizbecha b'rak min chachma lamata. So when you start to, where you could start counting them, and I guess they have, I think that idea is not so bad about tangibility. Hinecha kashev mitzbecha v'nimdach v'shev svira sheyesh min chachma d'zer anta lamata. And then he mentions those 7 spheres in Chochma bin das Chesed Gevurot Tiferes. He says when you get to Tiferes, that's the place where the Nukva is built. Tiferes is her anpin. Kenoida. V'imah hem sheva spheros. She has 7 spheros. What he meant by imah, I'm not sure, but he meant, but her totality will be 7 spheros. V'negdam anas sofrim sheva shavuos. So each one of them is a week. Elu, lefi she after she is dav guzun. Im hiyosh sheves spheros elu benuy ad, until there's no possibility of unity until she is completely rebuilt. Sheves spheros elu benuyim umusukanim, but that they can be built. The oz tihya ru'uya hi lezivug, and then she'll be ready for yichud. So this is a big idea. It's just that the construction that we're doing, and we're bringing in these little bits of pieces and godless, it's related to each week, and so each week is a different part of the binyan of the Nook. Now, exactly, there's detail on that, and it's something to see. But let's go on. The Yoski Chol Echad Me'ela Resheva He Kululu Bekulam. So each one of those 7 also has 7. So L'chein lo hisbig sheva yamim ela sheva shavuos. So it's not enough to have 7 days, but actually you have to have 7 weeks. V'kol shavuo kol sheva yamim. So we know that 7 really is the number of malchus. So here the whole thing, I'm just thinking and looking at it in perspective, is that it's all speaking about building up malchus. So malchus, it turns out, there are 7 parts to every one of the parts of malchus. Because Shavuot kolu sheva yomim, each week, which is another building block in malchus, has 7 parts. But because Shavuot me'elach sheva Shavuot, so every single week of these 7 weeks, the sekenes sefira achas m'sheva sefiros and iskara. So there's one tikkun takes place every single day in one of the parts of that week. Bofen ki b'shavu harishon nisakin muach hachachma b'sheva b'chinosel. So now coming in the muach hachachma, and it has 7 different parts. This week we will take each one of those parts and attempt with our concentration. We should be zeicha to be able to really see what's going on in the siddur. The only thing we learn the Rishash on the siddur, on the Rishash over here. That's the only so we learn. V'shvira shvi and nisakenes amalchus because sheva b'kinosechu. So, and then finally get to the what? Then you finally have complete and total malchus. Okay, so that's it today, Rebbe. Thanks a lot for learning with me, and